All right, for more on the Middle East conflict, let's now go to SABC News international news veteran journalist Sophie Mokoena, who will give us more details in terms of what has come through. Sophie, I think let's start. That foreign affairs statement essentially confirming the death of the supreme leader. I guess let's start there.
Yes, indeed. I've just received a statement that speaks to a confirmation in terms of the death of the supreme leader and the others. A long statement that I can't read, but it indicates the loss as it relates to the Iranian authority, the leadership hierarchy, but also the people of Iran. And therefore, always in line with the religious norms and beliefs as it relates to the Muslim religion, talking about now that the Ayatollah or the supreme leader is gone, what kind of spiritual engagement will happen, but also expressing the loss and the way it's crafted the statement. It's very diplomatic in language and also use of words, also respecting Muslim beliefs. And therefore, it is a clear indication that yesterday, those strikes that were targeted in Tehran and other places, because there were 5 areas that were targeted, there was a clear intelligence information given to the Americans and Israel to hit those targeted areas. And clearly they were aware that the officials were meeting in different areas where they were discussing the continued talks around Iran's nuclear capability, because there were talks that were happening behind the scenes, as we saw with that advisor of the Foreign Affairs Minister of Oman on X or Twitter, a long statement. He's explaining what was happening and how far were the negotiations, and that they were taken by surprise with these attacks because there was progress in terms of negotiations.
Yeah, we talk about those negotiations, and in fact, I asked one of our guests, Sophie, if that certainly seemed like a farce, given where we are now. What impact on peace and security will this have, in the Middle East?
This will affect the peace in the Middle East. It was very fragile. Even the ceasefire in Gaza is very fragile because people are still dying. Now that you have Iran in particular retaliating today and this morning, hitting neighboring countries, clearly this is going to heighten the tension in the Middle East. We also saw President Trump early morning posting on X or social media, taken from his Truth Social, that Iran has warned that it will engage in a massive retaliation, and America saying they shouldn't even try. And therefore, it means today everybody is watching what's likely going to happen. We saw earlier on people in different parts of neighboring countries in the Middle East, in the Gulf region, neighbors of Iran, posting what's happening, people going under the bunker, the attack of Dubai airport, evacuation at the airport in Qatar, Oman on standby, and even Jordan being hit, and not only targeting the facilities of Israel and America in those countries, or the military bases of America, even the buildings, ordinary people caught in a crossfire. And therefore, today it's going to be a difficult day, completely shut down of airspace in the Gulf region. We saw even aeroplanes or transporting people from different parts of the continent coming, the ones that are airlines from the Gulf region, like your Qatar, your Cathay Pacific, including your United Arab Emirates moving or offloading passengers in airports such as the Jomo Kenyatta Airport in Kenya, because they can't go to the Gulf region.
And I mean, it's not just about peace and security in the Middle East. We're also talking about, Sophie, the impact on the global economy. That is, of course, of great concern. That's what we will see starting to unfold.
It will affect the global economy, particularly on Monday, where many countries will start business and the markets will start trade. You will see the impact. The markets are likely going to be red tomorrow morning, because the fear here is supply chain. With the Red Sea route now not so safe, with Houthis in Yemen having announced that they will attack vessels carrying cargo from America and Israel. And we saw America issuing a warning to those vessels who are currently in that area to take a different route because of the fear that they might be targets. And that will lengthen prolong the trip to offload those goods that are on those vessels. And therefore, it will affect supply chain. Secondly, the oil price on Monday, we will see that it's going to be affected. And therefore, that might even affect inflation in poorer countries that are trying to rebuild post the COVID-19 and the post tension that engulfed the world, that affected the global economy after the outbreak of that, or the war in Ukraine and Middle East. Now you have this situation again, and that will definitely affect the global economy. South Africa will not be spared either. We are part of the global village. We get goods and services from other countries. We export goods and services to other countries. But also to watch is that route, the Cape of Good Hope. With the Red Sea now not so safe, you might see more vessels making their way using a long route via Cape of Good Hope. And that is why the president yesterday called for calm and sober minds to engage on talks, because this thing is not only going to affect people in the Middle East. That is why all leaders around the world yesterday had a say in terms of what's happening in the Middle East.
Perhaps talk to us, Sophie, about some of those global responses, the global reaction to this story which is still unfolding.
Most of the countries have pointed out that there was a violation of the UN Charter, Article 2.4, which speaks to territorial integrity and indicating that no country must attack another country unless that country is retaliating or responding to the attack. Now, when you look at what transpired yesterday, there were talks, there were negotiations. There was no indication that Iran was going to attack any country. And they were engaged in talks, and Oman indicated that there was progress. And all of a sudden, the attacks in a foreign land by America and Israel, that's a clear violation of international law. Now, the revenge by the Iranian authority, much as the article allowed them to hit back, they must target, for example, military and all of that, not ordinary sites where you have ordinary people. And we saw the airport will be an ordinary place where you have innocent people and all those buildings, the hotels. And therefore, there you can again say Iran's retaliation should be targeted at a particular target, not random in neighboring countries. Now, countries are issuing statements to point to that. The leaders, some of them, are pointing to that a violation of international law and the problem with retaliation much as it's allowed. So they are basing their reaction on international law and the UN Charter, because it is the world body that is supposed to maintain peace, and the countries have committed themselves to respect the UN Charter, and therefore many calling for cessation of hostilities and de-escalation.
Thank you very much indeed, Sophie Mokoena, always up to speed with the latest regarding this unfolding story. Thank you very much indeed. We'll touch base with you a bit later on to get what the latest is. The more statements come through and more world leaders speak out against what has transpired, many of them calling for a cessation to the violence that we are seeing in several parts in the Middle East. All right, let's go to this story now. In fact, earlier we spoke to Professor Christopher Geerwes, who is an associate professor of the School of Law, director at the Center for Applied Legal Studies, about the legal implications of the Middle East conflict, in particular when we look